Welcome to a new episode of Outside the Panels with your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes.
Welcome everyone to an episode of Outside the Panels, and this time around I am so far outside the panels, there's no panels at all. Instead of comic books this time around, we're looking at a proper book, a literary book from a new author. It's Joshua Hershey. Josh, how's it going, sir?
Hey, it's going good, Johnny. Good to see you.
Excellent. Thank you for taking the time out, man. You must
Hey,
be
no
really
problem.
busy.
Hey, no
Right.
problem.
You have a new book out. It's out now. You can get it at Barnes & Noble. There's a soft print. There's a hardback. There's an ebook. You can get it from Amazon. Full court press going on. So the book, Linden Falls. What's it about? What is the main drive of the story?
Yeah, so it takes place in kind of a medieval, Middle-earth type setting. A lot of high magic, high fantasy. And basically what it's about, there's two worlds. If you're familiar at all with Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, where you kind of cross through. So this girl inadvertently crosses into the spiritual realm. And basically is where all the supernatural activity is, right? Angels, demons, gods, things of that nature. And what she finds out is there's this darkness that basically encompasses her country, but you can't see it until you actually cross into the supernatural realm.
Yeah.
And so this darkness is what infects the hearts of people and their minds, and that's what causes all the evil in her country. So basically she finds out how she can break that darkness. And the cool thing is the angels can't really cross into our world. They'll burn.
Right.
So they basically have surrogates in our world that they basically tempt them with power and magic. Okay. So they actually don't want the darkness broken because that's where they get their power from. Right. So basically it's a mission to break that darkness.
Wow. All right. So if the darkness exists in the world, does that mean that the darkness is the right stuff or the bad stuff? Because I have my kids just turned up to that age, one of them, where he realizes that, you know, in Star Wars, right, the Emperor and the Empire is the legitimate government. And that Han Solo and Princess Leia and Luke Skywalker, they're essentially the bad guys.
Exactly.
So it's like, so does that kind of juxtaposition happen, or are we pretty much?
Yeah, no. Yeah, I think you're right on. I mean, the people in power, even in our world, will maybe use that power for evil. So that's the way it is. The people at the top, they've been tempted with this dark power. They don't want to see it go. And actually, kind of the sequel I'm working on now, you kind of see why some of the characters actually choose the darkness. So in the book, you know, you get to choose which god you're going to follow. Right. There's only one god of light. The rest are the gods of darkness. And you see why people choose the god of darkness. And maybe they have good reasons. Hey, I'm trying to protect my family. I'm trying to look out. And they look at that power and they say, I need that power to look out for me. So, yeah, you know, some good people can maybe choose kind of the wrong thing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's the interesting storytelling aspect, isn't it? The fact that good people have to do bad things or get tempted for the reason. Like, am I a thief if I steal bread to feed my family?
Exactly.
That's that original sort of sin, isn't it? That kind of rock in a hard place type of thing that you're going with. It's interesting you mentioned Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. This is like a children's classic. I've got to say, I've never been a fan of all the other kind of Narnia books.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I tried to read Prince Caspian 4 times and gave up in the end. I was like, nope, done. Aslan's where he is for me when it comes to, you know, it's got to be Narnia. It's Aslan. You've got to have the lion. Do you have kind of that focal character in Linden Falls?
Yeah, there's actually a couple but that Aslan type character, there is that type of character in the book, but he's a little more behind the scenes. He does come forward time to time, but I think the main story is actually on the characters trying to struggle to break the darkness, but he definitely is there.
So is he more like a Gandalf type of character then, where he kind of lurks around and does odd things here and there? Is that the kind of...
So actually my Aslan character is called the Morning Star. And so basically the main character, Mabel, she enters the spiritual realm, and she's basically offered all this power by these different gods, and the gods are stars. So the stars kind of descend, they take the shape of gods. So in that world, she sees him. In that world, she chooses to basically hook up with him. He gives her powers, but then she goes back to our world and kind of carries out the mission at hand. So he's there. He empowers you. He shows up time to time, but really not like a Gandalf that's kind of at your shoulder, every step of the way.
Okay. So you've said high fantasy, high magic. Does that mean Lord of the Rings is kind of one of your go-tos? Is this your inspiration, or are you more? I can't say his name because I'm not a big fan. So apologies to everyone who I'm going to insult by saying, surely it's not Harry Potter.
Well, I would say Harry Potter as far as how much magic there is.
All right, okay.
Like if you think of something like Game of Thrones.
All right, yeah.
There's maybe it's that kind of setting, but there's definitely more magic. There's more spells. There's firing light waves, the magics, the supernatural creatures, all kinds of supernatural creatures. So imagine kind of like the White Walkers or something like that in Game of Thrones, but having maybe like 5 or 6 different groups of that.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
So what you're essentially saying is you've taken aspects, or influences probably a better word, influences from different areas and kind of merged it to tell something new. So you have that Middle Earth kind of Game of Thrones medieval setting. You've got the high magic, the high fantasy, which takes outside the realms of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
They've got, so what's it like then? So you must be a huge fan of this kind of fantasy genre.
Yeah, I am, and I don't know. Like, obviously, I'm biased because it's my book, but what I like is I really stretched the playing field. So I made a flat Earth where you can literally go out to the edges of the Earth. You can there's different wormholes where you're in that spiritual realm. You can transport to planets. You can go to the underworld. So I tried to stretch the playing field to get off of just the Earth, get more into the air. You can get wings, you can fly like angels to kind of expand, where the action takes place.
Cool. Excellent.
Yeah.
So a flat Earth and underworld sounds quite Mayan in certain aspects.
Yeah.
I love Mexico, and I've done a couple of Mayan trips and stuff, so I understand
Awesome.
the whole idea that in Mayan culture the Earth is flat, and then you go into the cenotes and you're swimming with because the cenotes are underwater, you're swimming with the dead, and you have to be like blessed when you come out of it to cleanse your spirits, I guess.
Yeah.
Has any of the kind of, I suppose, the culture that we take for granted in our world, in our real world, has that kind of been an inspiration for you, kind of like trying to shore up the different aspects of what you're trying to do?
That's a great question. I don't find a ton of inspiration in the world like around me. I think that's one of the hard things about fantasy. If I was writing, I don't know, modern day romance or something,
crime. If you're doing crime,
kind of
ecological wonder, ecological horror. That's all pretty much the news.
So for me, I got to do a lot of research. Like you say, Mayans, I've checked them out. Ancient Asian cultures, ancient theology. You've trying to go back in time, and see what people thought, what people believed, the different gods, the different powers. So there's definitely a kind of a lot of looking in the rear view of where civilizations came from and what they believe. So I try to weave probably a little bit more of that in, more than anything I really see around me.
Sweet. So are you the type of person that if you go and watch, like, I don't know, like a Thor movie, for example, I have to say Thor, my wife loves Thor, don't ask me why. It's probably all the muscles and blonde hair, whatever. But anyhow, you go watch a Thor movie. Now Thor's steeped in Marvel's version of Norse mythology. After you're doing all this research for the different, the Asian aspects, Mayans, and so on and so forth, you're going to cross swords with some more of the more generic stuff? Do you kind of sit back in the movie theater and go, no, that's wrong? No,
I don't know. As long as it's well done, I do understand you've got to try to mold it a little bit to fit, what the story you're trying to create.
Okay.
But yeah, as long as it's well done.
Nicely said. That way you haven't burnt your bridges when you go to work for Marvel. Well done. Josh, correct me if I'm wrong. Is this your first book?
Yes, sir.
Your first book, and I've had a look on your Amazon page, and this book is 286 pages long. How does that seems to me, because I see quite a lot of first-time authors and so on, that seems like a hell of a lot of pages for a first swing, my friend. I'm not going to lie. How were you nervous about kind of thinking, well, you know what, I've got this story, and were you surprised that it actually finished at 286? Were you kind of thinking, what? Where did this come from?
I don't know. I tell you, it wasn't easy. Now I'm writing the sequel. It's coming a lot easier, but I had a lot of writer's block. Yeah, I was trying to learn how to write as I was writing, and this one writer called it like the marathon in the middle. You start out fast, you know what you want to do, you know where it's going to end, and then all of a sudden, like you say, you start hitting that 100 pages, 150, 200.
I hear you.
And yeah, for me, I kind of write almost like a jigsaw or like a really big puzzle where you kind of got these pieces filled in and you kind of got these pieces, and I would have kind of holes in my story. So try to work where I could work, and then eventually it came together.
See, that's an interesting aspect, because I'm gonna use, I suppose, a metaphor for this. If you're kind of writing piecemeal, it means that the stuff you're doing first is the fun stuff, the stuff you're really energized about, right?
Yeah.
It's like if you try to draw a comic book, you want to draw the fight scene, you want to draw Spider-Man, you want to draw this, you want to draw that, and then somewhere along the line, someone says, "Oh, don't forget to throw in the buildings that you stuck to," and you're like, buildings, great. Buildings, yeah. Who wants to draw straight lines for like 20 hours a day? Yeah. So it's that bridge, isn't it? That bridge between the set pieces. Did you have to write kind of like a Bible of your world to say, right, these are going to be the historic key points in time, and then my story covers this small section, and then in that section, this, and this have to happen. How do I get it to work?
Yeah, that was huge. I mean, you're writing and things can't just happen. There has to be like a reason. Like I had this one crazy backstory. I don't want to give all of it away.
Oh no, don't give the house away.
There's this character that's basically held by a magic knife, like held in time, and she's set free. But then you have to explain this whole story of like how she ever got held in time, and she's a princess of this king, and it was given to marriage to this guy, and then there was magic over here, and this queen got jealous over there, and like next thing you know, you've written like thousands of words of like backstory, and then the trick is you don't want to just data dump your reader with like you don't want it to feel like a history lesson. So you're trying to cut it out, make it interesting, and but yeah, you're right. I mean, I feel like I'm writing this history of this world because there's other countries, there's other people groups, and all of it's fake, so the topography, the cities, the ruling structure, why this group of people is at war with this group of people. So I guess that's part of the reason it filled up to almost 300 pages.
Well, I mean, bear in mind, you don't want to, you're absolutely right, data dumping or exposition just for the, I tell you who's really bad for this, and I really love the show, right? So it's an old school show, right? So apologies for anyone who's going to hurt me for this as well. Babylon 5. I love Babylon 5, but you watch Babylon 5 and there's episodes where two characters sit, one there, and they just talk at each other about everything. And I'm like, dude, just show, not tell, man. Show. Yeah. I don't want to, and then you're right, it does get a little bit like heavy at times. So it's good to see that you've kind of already sort of switched on to the risks of that. But some of these backstories that can They can take a while. They don't have to be all in one book, you know. They can kind of, you know, I mean, if you read The Watchmen, for example, the story about the pirate only starts halfway through the book, and everyone's like, you know, that's my favorite part of the book. I'm like, yeah, it is. Yeah. So cool. Just take your time. You'll be fine. It'll be cool. Excellent. Talk about Babylon 5 brings up an interesting question. Do you kind of I love American football. We were talking off the show, and I know you talk to an Eagles fan, and I'm a Dolphins fan, as everyone knows. Because I used to play over here in the UK. Sometimes when I watch a ball game, I can't just watch a ball game. You know what I'm saying? It's like I'm watching what the safety's doing. I'm watching the stance that the linemen are in. I'm already working out what the play's going to be. Don't care what Tony Romo says. You know, I'll mute him and just listen to my own head. From a writing perspective, do you kind of catch yourself watching stuff and kind of noticing the tricks of the trade, as it were, to kind
as far as studying other people's work?
Yeah. So like plot devices and kind of like how. Yeah. I think what I read an introduction by Peter David in a Star Trek graphic, and he turned around and said that if you go to the theater and there is a gun over the mantelpiece on set, you know by the third act that gun will have to be fired, because otherwise there's no point for it being there. And as soon as you read that, if I have this idea in my head when I read stories, I'm always looking for the gun. Yeah, the thing that's going to unlock the whole thing. So you're a writing professional, and if I'm doing this from the cheap seats for fun, how much harder must it be for you to sit and enjoy a book or a film or whatever without analyzing it to the nth degree?
Yeah, I would say, man, you're asking a ton of great questions here. I mean, I would say I don't want to say it's ruined it, but I used to be a real bookworm growing up, and I could just read and read. And kind of on that note, I had a teacher in high school that was real strict. He was a proofreader, taught different classes in our school, typing and everything. But he said from all the years of proofing people's homework that he would tell me, even if he would go into McDonald's and look at the menu, he would start critiquing, like, is anything misspelled, or like any kind of signage, when he would be out. And it's kind of like that, where I would almost drive to a cafe or something to get away from my office to read a book, because if I'm in my office, I start putting sticky notes and highlighting and writing in the margin, which it's nice in some ways because you really get deep in the text of what's making it great. But the downside is I'm always stopping and I'm kind of losing the flow of the story. Even film, I try to break down some films, some good movies, like characters, what I like about it. But I don't know. I think in some ways it's kind of taking a little bit of joy out of the reading because I just can't read a good book with, like, as soon as I read something, I'm like, oh, I like how they did, like, I like how she did that, or I like how he did that.
I hear you.
And if there's something in me now, like if I don't highlight it or circle it or make a note,
I bet you're popular at the library. Josh, if you brought back a book with highlighters, ma'am, I have. Sorry, ma'am. You know what? I hear what you're saying. I review comics for Comic Crusaders, our sister site, and once I'm done with that, I put them to one side. I sit down, I start reading comics that I'll buy for myself, and I start reading them, and automatically my voice is going, "Oh, that panel's wrong. Oh, look at that." And I'm like, "Shut up, man, shut up." But it's funny you talk about your teacher there. My wife is an absolute grammar snob. All right, and I love my wife dearly. We'll go to a cafe or a coffee house, and she'll look at the menu, right? And she'll look at it, and then she'll tut. And then she'll turn on her heel and walk out. And I'm like, where are you going? She's like, well, they spelled cappuccino wrong. If you can't spell it, they can't make it. And off she goes. Yeah. Like, I wouldn't even care. She drinks lattes. You know, it's me that's getting the naff cappuccino. But it's funny, isn't it, how we kind of get into these kind of habitual elements of ourselves that we're so used to being like just one aspect that we kind of have to then try and park that And then, of course, the problem is, you said writer's block earlier. We park it for a while, and then we go back to the page. And right, I'm going to use those muscles. And you're like, nope. You said no, so we're not working today. Do one. You know, it's kind of like, oh. So, yeah, you can't win. Can't win it sometimes.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I'm even to this day, my book's been out for a while. It's hard for me to read my own book because I'm so terrified that I'm going to find a typo.
Oh, dude,
and
don't.
Yeah.
I honestly feel your pain. I feel your pain. When I like to draw. I'm a comic book fan, so I draw and stuff, and I think, yeah, that's great, that's woo. And I'll put it to one side, and I'll come back to it like a day later or whatever to put the inks on it. I'll look at it, and I'm like, man, why did I draw this? This is awful. And I like do this and do, and I get it. I can't walk away either. I am terrible for it. Okay, right. Before we get into any more influences of yourself and your book, time for one of our adverts. Let's see. What I tell you what, something's happened in the Marvel comic book universe that I think people need to be aware of. So, with that in mind, here's our advert for our fantastic Marvel show, the No Prize Podcast. It's the No Prize Podcast, drops on alternate Tuesdays with our other sister show, the Definitive Crusade. If you're watching the pod, you know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to spoil it here. You know what's happened. Go and watch the show and find out if you don't. Simple as. All right. Thank you. All right. You mentioned authors. Who are your I suppose your writing heroes?
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of a real throwback. Like, my mom was an English teacher. So my favorite writer growing up was Edgar Allan Poe. I like
from Baltimore. Yeah,
I like like a lot of 1800s writers like Robert Louis Stevenson, Treasure Island, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, Suicide Club. I like C.S. Lewis, obviously. And I know what you're saying, the Chronicles of Narnia, some of them are a little weaker, but I love The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Lion, which that rocks. That is the jewel of that crown for sure.
Yeah, big Game of Thrones. I like Game of Thrones. And I do like J.K. Rowling. I mean, some people think maybe they're kid books, but I don't know. I think she's a really brilliant writer. I learned a lot from her. Pacing. I think she's a great writer. So I definitely look up to her. But yeah, I'm a guy that, and there's other people. There's Laini Taylor or Veslani Taylor, but daughter of Smoke and Bone.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some other writers, but those are kind of my main ones that I'll reread.
Cool, excellent. It's interesting because as I mentioned, the Narnia books. For me, Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is the jewel. And I am one of those people who thinks that Harry Potter is a kid's book. I had a girlfriend who tried to make me read it one time. I got halfway down page 1 of book 1. I was like, it's a kid's book. And that's not that's not a problem. I get it. Loads of people like Roald Dahl, and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Charlie and the Glass Elevator and all that sort of stuff. They're kids' books. I totally get it. I'm not being a snob about it. It's just not for me. My wife, on the hand, loves the movies. Right? Yeah. And I know loads of people that love Harry Potter. So, I don't mind being the wrong guy. I didn't be wrong. It's just not for me. It's just not my cup of tea. Fine. Yeah. The longevity of things like Game of Thrones. It's interesting. The one I find interesting about Game of Thrones is that there's a deviation, isn't there? Because the series has had to go a different way to the books because... Is it George R. Martin is notoriously slow at the typewriter?
Yeah.
So, do you find and I'm going to be controversial on this, do you think that's one of the reasons why the last season of Games kind of pretty much got knocked on the head, because it was deviant from where the people expected it to be from the books?
The thing is, I think it's hard for anybody to compete with George Martin. You know, that was his story, so no one's going to be able to finish it like he could have. But
cool.
Yeah, I tell you what though, when you say just like the longevity of how these stories stay around, it's you know, you and I follow sports, so
Yeah.
if you look at a great quarterback, let's say Patrick Mahomes, right? When he competes this season, he's only competing against the quarterbacks that's playing today, right?
Yeah.
He's not competing against Montana and name it, you know.
Marino. Don't forget Marino.
Yeah, Marino. But, you know, as a writer, it's like you're still competing against everybody of all time. You know, like I say, they're still on the bookshelf. I mean, it's like if you think of a bookstore, like here, Barnes and Nobles, right? It's not like they clear all the shelves at the end of the year and they're like, okay, this year we're going to put authors of this year, right?
Yeah.
You still got the Scarlet Letter. I mean, Star Wars, you got Game of Thrones, like they never go away. So
that is such a good point.
You kind of feel like as a writer, you kind of feel like I got to compete against all the great writers of all time.
And their existing fan bases.
Because like me, like when a new reader is coming up, like 12, 13, 14, the parents say, hey, you got to read Harry Potter. You got to read Game of Thrones. Or you know, my book, let's say. So you feel like my book's competing for attention with all the great stories of all time. You know, which in some ways is good because it really forces you to give it your best.
You know what? That is a really fantastic point you've made there, Josh. It's something I've never considered when it comes to sort of literary books as opposed to comic books or, you know, the sport metaphor. You're absolutely right. You know, not only do you have to compete with the 14th, 15th printing of a Game of Thrones book or a Potter book, you've got those fan bases are massively media centric. So therefore, you know, you're going to walk into a bookstore and you're going to see it. Go, oh, I know who Harry Potter is, and boof, you know, even if you're just reading it for the first time, you know of Harry Potter. Whereas yourself, you know, you're trading on, you know, the fact that the book is great. You're looking for those new readers. You're looking for people who want someone to try something different. You know, so I'd never even thought of it like that. That is such a weight to carry. How do you manage to sort of like manage that level of expectations? Because that would drive me dementia.
It kind of puts you in a little depression sometimes. Like, imagine being a new basketball player and you're like, I got to compete with LeBron or Michael Jordan, or like, it's like you're a new writer, and you know, like anything, you're trying to get better, and man, you crack these books open, you know, some's on the shelf behind me, and you're like, man, these guys are good, and I don't know. So sometimes you can beat yourself up and feel like, you know, your writing's trash, but at the same time, I'm thankful that these great writers kind of went ahead of me, because you can study from them and learn from them. See, you know, the emotional up and down.
See, I just find, you know, I just think they're absolutely, you know, you've absolutely kind of put that creative window out there. You've kind of put your heart and soul on display, and hoping that Barnes and Noble love it as much as you do. So, you know, and that's absolutely amazing. Such a brave thing to do. Absolutely brave. But if you've got commitment, if you've got confidence in your work, go for it, right?
Yeah,
exactly. Right. So let's have a quick look at the cover. So this is a cover for the book. Looks very nice. Who's your cover artist?
Yeah, it's a guy, Brad. Now I'm drawing a blank. It's a long word, like Felton. I'm gonna butcher his name. Brad from California.
All right, Brad from California.
Oh, you know what? I think it's Fraunfelter. I don't want to butcher his name, but
okay, that's cool.
Yeah, Brad out of California.
Brad out of California. It's very good. I like this. I love the kind of aesthetic on the young lady. I take it this is Mabel.
Yeah.
who's this bad guy then?
Yeah,
He's
so
got a
that's
snake. He's got a
Leviathan.
snake. He's got a snake for a head, so therefore that must be a bad guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the bad guy.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So his name's Leviathan.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
So he's got like a head of a snake, wings of an eagle. All right. Okay. Cool. And he's Nick Darth Vader's sword. Excellent.
Yeah.
Cool. You mentioned about the shooting stars. Are these the elements you were talking about on the cover? The shooting stars were the the angels.
Yeah, exactly. So when you cross into the unseen realm, the evil stars are red, and they can transfigure, they can transform, and become gods. They can also come together and form constellations that can battle other stars. So you have white
Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I might have got that idea from the old Transformers. They used to have Transformers that could like hook up together and make. Who knows? But yeah, the stars can battle each other and also give powers, to people on Earth.
Cool. Cool. Was it always your intention to write Middle Earth type things? Is this where you feel most comfortable?
Yeah, you're exactly right. In fact, I'll tell you this little story. When I was in college, we did a business trip, and I graduated early 2000s, so it was before cell phones and things. So it was probably like the last generation of people that, when we traveled, people weren't staring at their phones. So we had like this tour bus, and I remember, we would sit in the back and come up with questions. And there's one kid, he said, "Hey, if there's a time machine and it can only go one direction, to the future or to the past, which way would you go?" And I was the only person back in that back part of the bus that wanted to go to the past. Everybody else said, "Oh, we got to know what the future has. We got to know what the future has." But I mean, I grew up in the country. My grandpa would look for old arrowheads. I'd go through dry creek beds to see, maybe find little medicine bottles or, an old barn, like anything that was old. Anything from the past. I always like archaeology. So, I always like the medieval ages or, Middle Ages, the ships, pirate ships, stuff like that. So I always kind of knew that's where I would go. But at the same time, I love the high fantasy aspect, the magic and everything. So it's just naturally where I wanted to go.
Excellent. Good call. Good call. I think definitely the idea of it's because we mentioned about mixed elements earlier. I definitely think the idea of alternative lands is such a popular thing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Stranger Things has its Upside Down. Is that what it's called? I don't know. I don't watch Upside. I don't know. They have it Upside Down. Game of Thrones still massively popular.
Mm-hmm.
Dungeons and Dragons has just been out at the cinema over here.
I used to love the old Conan movies. I don't know if you remember with Schwarzenegger, and I know they're a little, maybe a little cheesy at times, but I remember as a kid the first time I saw Arnold riding that horse with that sword, I was like, "Whoa, this is crazy."
The first one's really adult in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
there's a lot of nudity in the first one. Second one, I agree, is a bit cheese on toast. But yeah. I love Conan. Give me some Bobby Howard any day.
Yeah.
With me some Conan. Cool. Excellent. So we can get your book. So if you're in the States, you can get the book at a Barnes and Noble, as we mentioned. If you live in the States and you like digital, or you live anywhere else in the world, you can get it on Amazon.
Yeah.
Now you can order the Real I Am copy, and there you get it in your hands. Depending on your point of view, I can buy a Kindle version. So that's interesting. It is part of the free read it free with the free app. So Amazon must give you some cheddar cheese for that. What I find very interesting, looking at the actual Amazon page, it costs more money to buy it secondhand than it does firsthand.
Yeah.
So obviously, in my head, that tells you that it's a really popular book and people are going to be trading on it. Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully.
So it's so that means ka-ching, ka-ching for you, right?
Hey.
Did you? So you have to pardon my ignorance on this. Would it be an actual book published? Did you have to use a publisher for this as well as like the digital version?
Yeah, I use a publisher, and we do have. I'm sorry.
So how were they when you sort of gave them the kind of the pitch for the book? Were they like,
no, they liked it, and they've been just a true help to me. Put me in touch with good people. I got a great narrator for the audiobook. Try to show me the ropes. Like I say, brought our paths crossed. So you kind of write the book, and then there's just this whole stage. I live in this little office basically, and then there's this whole world out there to navigate. Channels and different formats and publicists and trying to get the word out. So yeah, they've been just a real blessing.
Cool. Excellent. I am going to download a sample of the book because I'm going to Ibiza in a couple of weeks. So I shall be downloading that to have a read of that. So there you go.
Awesome.
That's on my comments onto you. Yeah. Josh, give us your 30-second or 60-second elevator pitch as to why someone should pick up Linden Falls.
Yeah, so we talked a lot about just the world building, the high magic. It's fast, action paced scenes, things like that. But if someone really wants to know why, there's basically kind of like a deep struggle with wanting to live, with the main character at the end, feeling like that you trusted God and God let you down. And I don't know. I think we've maybe all felt that way, just feeling like aimless. Like the main character even says, actually, I think it's Levine, that life is a curse. Like why do you even want to live anymore? Yeah. So if anyone's kind of down, if everyone's trying kind of struggling to go on, I think there's a positive message at the end that sometimes we feel like just feel like we don't want to go on, but God's still there for you. So that's probably the theme that I emphasize the most. If someone's like, hey, why would I pick it up?
Yeah, cool. Yeah. That faith in something, isn't it? Luke Skywalker has the Force.
Yeah.
And all that sort of thing. So, I totally get it. That's cool. Excellent. There you go. The book is out now. You can get it in bookstores. You can get it in different formats. You can get it on Amazon. Go check it out. Simple as. If you check it out, you're welcome. If you go to Amazon, just type in the word Linden Falls and it'll come straight up. You the guys know how to use a search engine, for Christ's sakes, right? We'll see. Josh, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to hang out with me. I really do appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, Johnny. I appreciate it.
No, you're more than welcome, sir. More than welcome. Good luck with the book. Sounds great. Can't wait to get to read it. Bring it on. My Ibiza holiday, it'll be a hit because of it, I'm sure.
Hey, thank you.
All right, guys. All right, everyone else, don't forget to check out the UCPM for all your favorite shows, including, you saw the trailer for it earlier, the No Price Podcast. And if you like everything DC with a certain movie coming out in the next couple of weeks, don't forget to check out the Definitive Crusade. There you go. That's all we have. Josh, thank you so much again. I really do appreciate it.
All right, Johnny. Hey, take care.
And you, sir. And as for everyone else, I've been your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes. Adios.
Visit undercovercapes.com for the latest and greatest podcasts via the Undercover Capes Podcast Network. Also visit our parent company website, comiccrusaders.com, all about comic pop culture.